Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here bringing you all another Market Watch episode. Today we are talking a bit about the two big releases that we have coming up over the next couple of weeks in Phantom Rage and Maximum Gold. Between the timing of these releases and the fact that Maximum Gold was delayed and the gradual leaks that we've gotten over the last little while, I definitely feel like these are among the most hyped up releases of 2020, even more so than what we saw from the 2020 Megatins. With that being said, we are definitely seeing a ton of overreactions on the market, with all of this hype bringing about both highs and lows to card prices all across the board. So today we are going to talk a bit about what those prices are looking like and how I believe that you guys should be navigating the market amidst all of this movement. Let's get started. Okay, so kicking things off, we're taking a look at some of the chase cards out of Phantom Rage, specifically those secret rares that are a little bit more generic. It is still early on with Phantom Rage not being officially released until later this week, but we've already seen the prices of cards falling, and I think that there's still a lot of room for prices to decline. Now, AA Zeus is a really strong Xyz monster that could potentially help Zodiacs to become somewhat relevant, but the card has already quickly fallen from being a $100 card to now being a $70 card. Unfortunately, I do feel like Zeus will continue to drop towards the $50 mark, strictly due to its limited applications within the meta. Looking at the top decks of the format in Dragon Link, Infernobles, Dinosaurs, and Invoke Dogmatica, none of them really go into Xyz monsters that consistently. Really, I think we'd be looking at more of a rogue deck utilizing this card, and the only one I can think of that could potentially make its way into the meta is Zodiacs. Now, even if Zodiacs do become good, Zeus has limited applications and it's only good in the one deck, so it definitely isn't going to be as expensive as more generic cards like Appaloosa or Borosword that we saw in the past. Because of these limited meta applications, I believe that Zeus falling to around the $50 price point is kind of inevitable. Alpha is the other expensive card that sits atop the set, and even though it's more splashable and generic than Zeus, I feel like it will similarly decline in price. Alpha is getting some hype because it saw play as a side deck card over in the OCG, as you could use it to out Dragoon after burning that negate. However, here in the TCG, I don't believe that it is nearly as strong of an option. I think that the boards that we look at here in the TCG are way crazier because combo decks just aren't held back by the existence of Max C, so Alpha probably won't be as useful here. You'd actually probably be a lot better off using something like a Kaiju, right? Now, that being said, Alpha is something that I would also be trying to offload at the current $65 price point, as I could definitely see it falling to around $40 or so after people realize that the card just isn't as good here in the TCG. With both of these cards, I hear some people arguing that they are undervalued and that they have the same upwards potential as cards like Triple Tactics Talent or Forbidden Droplets. I, however, would argue that both of these cards are much less useful and have much lower ceilings than either of those other two. Now, that's not to say that it's impossible for these cards to shoot up in price and become similarly expensive, but it would be a very specific evolution of our meta to see these cards somehow become meta staples that are actually worth $100 a piece. If you are opening up some cases of Phantom Rage, I would definitely look at moving these cards early on at their hyped up prices and then trying to buy them back later on after they've inevitably tanked in price. Now, one other card I want to cover here because it's also generic is Warning Point, a secret rare trap card that is only around the $13 mark. This card is potentially really good in theory, but because it's a trap and has such a specific application, it probably isn't going to be meta relevant anytime soon. I feel like it's similar to cards like Sales Pitch and Witch's Strike and Get Out, which have a lot of potential but probably aren't going to do anything crazy anytime soon. If you happen to have them, I'd also offload this card now because I think it's only a matter of time before it follows the rest of those trap cards that we've seen in recent sets and falls down to the $5 mark. Okay, so those couple of chase cards aside, I feel like there isn't a whole ton of stuff to look at value-wise from Phantom Rage. Definitely not as much as people are expecting or hoping. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel like a lot of the archetypes from the set are really cool. Things like the Mutants, the Virtual World, the Tri-Brigades, I think all of them could potentially see meta play if we had some of the current decks hit on an upcoming ban list. However, at the current moment, I don't really see any of these decks finding their way into the meta right off the bat, and as a result, we should definitely expect all of these cards to tank in price relatively quickly. Now with Mutant Ultimus and Dual Avatar Invitation, we are already seeing them in the mid-single digits because they probably show the least potential of all the archetypes. If you're the type of person that likes to gamble, maybe you want to pick up something like the Mutants at $3 to $4 each, just in case we were to get like Mutant support in Blazing Vortex with those TCG exclusives, but that really is anyone's guess and it's just a gamble at this point. Now with the Virtual World and the Tri-Brigade cards, it's a lot more difficult to say because they are both archetypes that could be really strong in the future. The Tri-Brigades are definitely the more hyped up archetype because they have some really strong cards and could combine well with a deck like Zodiacs. However, from what I've been told, the Virtual World deck actually could do something if they were to get a couple of new cards, like maybe something off the ban list or a couple of new support cards, and have some pretty interesting plays already with cards like True King of All Calamities. Now, either way, my advice is going to be the same here. On set release, and for the first week to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks after that, I am going to recommend staying away from all of these cards altogether, just because right off the bat, they won't really be doing anything, so they should tank in price quite a bit. Realistically, we'll be seeing them at around 60 to 70% of what their current prices are, so we definitely don't want to be buying them early on. However, after we've given all of the prices a chance to settle down and people have flooded the market with extra copies from the cases that they've pre-ordered or that they've pulled trying to chase Starlights or Zeus or Alpha, that's the perfect opportunity to look for cards that you're interested in or think have the potential to go up in price. I definitely think that being patient and not rushing to buy cards right off the bat is the best way to go, especially with the lack of events, meaning that you guys shouldn't be in a rush to pick up things anyways. Now, either way, this is definitely something that you guys should keep in mind over the next couple of weeks. We basically always see these non-meta cards fall in price from their initial release points, and we shouldn't expect anything different this time around. Alright, now moving on to Maximum Gold, I think that the most surprising reveal from that set was confirmation that Eldlich the Golden Lord is being included as a reprint despite being only released here in the TCG for about 6 to 7 months. That's an incredibly short amount of time for something that's such a meta-relevant deck, especially one that was actually top tier for quite some time. We've begun to see a dip in the price of Eldlich over the last couple of weeks as people began to speculate that the leaked Maximum Gold list was really real, so it was already down at around $80 a piece before the reveal, and it's already fallen to about $65 a piece. Now, the prices from Maximum Gold are going to be extremely difficult to assess for a couple of different reasons. Firstly, with Maximum Gold being such a big set, even though we are seeing a reprint of Eldlich, it's not exactly going to be easy to pull, as you're probably pulling only 1, maybe 2 copies per case. Secondly, the secret rares are still going to be the original print version and should retain a fair amount of value over their gold rare counterparts, especially since there will be a significant difference in terms of how the cards look. Now with Eldlich, I'm going to say that we should wait for their release in Maximum Gold, but look at picking them up after they've had a chance for the prices to settle. I think that on the next ban list, while we are likely to see cards like Smoke Grenade of the Thief and Guard Dragon LP hit for Noble Knight and Dragon Link decks respectively, I think that Scarlet Sanguine and the rest of the Eldlich cards won't actually be touched at all, so there's a decent chance that the cards could see an increase in meta play and therefore an increase in price shortly after. I also want you guys to keep in mind that even though we will see a bit of a dip in the price of Eldlich in the short term, it would definitely be a mistake to overreact and try to offload your Eldliches extremely cheap at something like $30 a piece. Over the last little while, we have noticed that people are appreciating more having the original first edition copy over a reprint, so the secret rare prints should still retain a significant amount of value over the gold rare copies. That being said, there are a couple of other cards that you guys should keep in mind, though I have talked about each of them on Market Watches before. Elixir of Black Awakening actually saw a big buyout right after the Eldlich reprint was confirmed, where it shot up to around $20 a piece, but since then it has cooled back off to around the $14 mark. This card was short printed as a secret rare out of Secret Slayers, and even though Eldlich is being reprinted, everyone seems to be assuming that the other Eldlich cards aren't being reprinted, so Black Awakening, as something that was a short print originally, was a natural buyout target. And then of course, Cursed Eldland wasn't exactly a short print and it was just a super rare, but it's a 3-of for any deck that wants to utilize the Eldlich engine, so it's only going to see an increase in demand moving forward. Now I'm actually going to argue that you guys should be picking up your copies of Black Awakening and Cursed Eldland now, because there's a pretty good chance that they will go up in price upon the release of Maximum Gold, as more and more people need the cards to round off their Eldlich cores. They're definitely cards that you'll want to pick up sooner rather than later before they've had a chance to shoot up any further in price. Okay, so we're on to a bit of movement that was a bit more confusing to me, this time with regards to the Dragonmaid cards. Now, so far from Maximum Gold, we've seen leaks of Kitchen and Laundry, two of the main Dragonmaid monsters. Now, immediately after these leaks, we really weirdly saw a buyout of Parlor Dragonmaid of all things, despite being another maid form of the Dragonmaids that is also very likely to be reprinted in Maximum Gold as well. For whatever reason, the card has shot up to $15 a piece, and I can't help but feel like this was one of the dumber buyouts that we've seen from the Yu-Gi-Oh community, just because of how obvious it should be that the card will be included. Like, to be fair, it's possible that they just reprinted Kitchen and Laundry and they're gonna want to leave Parlor out, but I find that incredibly unlikely, especially given that they also chose to include something like the Fusion as well. Now, that being said, I think it's safe to say that we should be moving our copies of Parlor as soon as possible, given their inflated status and the fact that they're just super rares. However, with the pricier cards in Kitchen and Nurse, we want to think very similarly to Eldlich, though obviously the deck isn't meta relevant. It'll be nice to have these reprints cool down the prices temporarily, though we don't want to be offloading the original secret rare copies for too cheap, because as the originals, they will still be pretty highly sought after. I also think that the secret rares look much nicer than the gold rares in the case of the Dragonmaids, because the artwork for the gold rare just makes the card look like it has a little bit too much going on. Maybe that's just my personal preference. Now, two cards that I would want to keep an eye out on are Chamber Dragonmaid and Dragonmaid Hospitality. These are two cards that have not been confirmed to be reprinted in Maximum Gold as of yet. I think that we are very unlikely to see Chamber because it is from a core set. So if you're wanting to play Dragonmaids with the stuff now being more accessible with these reprints, then go ahead and pick up your copies of Chamber now before we see an increase in demand that drives up the price. Dragonmaid Hospitality is very similar, right? We didn't see any Dragonmaid spell or trap cards in Maximum Gold so far, so theoretically, it's not likely that we're gonna see it because we did see several packs opened. Now, Hospitality is actually a really important card for the deck, as it's kind of like an on-theme monster reborn that you can actually search. There's still a lot of cards that can take up those Maximum Gold slots, right? Because there's a lot of cards that we haven't had confirmed yet, but just keep an eye peeled on key cards for the Dragonmaid archetype that might not be reprinted, like Chamber Dragonmaid and like Dragonmaid Hospitality. Just be ready to snipe them if it's confirmed that they aren't in the set, because if they aren't, they'll definitely see a price jump shortly after. So there's one thing about Maximum Gold that I've heard several people freaking out about. Now, with Maximum Gold, I think that a big thing we have to keep in mind is that for a lot of the cards, the reprints are basically rares, where they have gold text and non-holo pictures, or they're the gold rares, right? Now, with that, I think it's important to keep in mind that Yu-Gi-Oh players are still going to gravitate towards the original holo copies rather than the non-holo reprints. Therefore, I definitely think it's incorrect for people to be freaking out and looking to offload copies of anything and everything being reprinted in the set, because the values just aren't going to tank as much as people might think. I think that a prime example of this is Totally Awesome, which has its two secret rare printings and then the upcoming rare reprint in Maximum Gold. If you guys have paid attention, you'll notice that despite the confirmed reprint, the secret rares have retained a lot of their value. The rare reprint of Toad will probably come in at around $5 a piece or something like that, and the Megaton reprint may drop to around $15, but I am fairly confident that the original secret rares in first edition will maintain their $20 price point, unless they were to randomly get like an ultimate rare printing or something like that. Another example is Borrelsword Dragon with its alternate art gold rare version. Even though we may see some decline in the prices of the Ultras or the Battles of Legend secret rares, the original Cybernetic Horizon secrets will still retain a lot of their value as the original print over what is clearly a lower rarity reprint. A lot of the time when people think of reprint sets, they think that they need to offload cards immediately in order to retain value, but I think that this is a pretty old way of thinking in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh! This may have been the way that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was 6 or 7 years ago, but with the way that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Market has evolved recently, those original prints actually end up retaining most of their value over time, and I think they are okay to hold on to, especially when a card has multiple printings. I also point this out because I noticed that a lot of people try to use this tactic to bully people out of their valuable cards, devaluing the other person's cards just because it has this reprint coming up, when really someone just is after the original high rarity copy and looking to grab it at a good deal. Hopefully, you guys can learn a little bit from this and know to either hold on to your cards or maximize the value that you're getting if you do decide to offload them. The last thing I want to encourage all of you to keep an eye on are cards that are complementary to cards being reprinted in Maximum Gold. What I mean by this is that we want to keep an eye out for cards from an archetype or strategy where an expensive or hard to find piece is being reprinted. A lot of the time, a reprint like this will encourage people to look at building a certain deck or strategy because that reprint makes the deck more affordable, which drives the prices of other cards up as the demand increases as well. I think that the perfect example in this case is Madolche Angeli, specifically the secret rare reprint from Battles of Legend. In Maximum Gold, we are getting a reprint of Hootcake, which was previously one of the most expensive remaining cards in the deck, as it was one of the only ones without a reprint. It was anywhere from $10 to $20 before, but now with this reprint, the whole deck is much more affordable. Therefore, I would definitely expect to see people look at picking up other Madolche cards like the secret rare Angelis. I would also look at something like the ultra rare Magellan from Dual Overload, super rare Messengelados, or common Pudding Cess and Tiara Misu from Astral Pack as well. With so many reprints, we are bound to see a ton of opportunities like this come up. For instance, with a reprint of something like the Monarchs Erupt, you might want to make sure that you have your extra copies of Pantheism or Aether and Erebus available. Or with Morningstar's reprint, you might want key cards like Ixchel or Nastin for the Dark Lord deck. While there are limited cards that we can look at here for now, given how we don't have the whole set list revealed yet, cards like this are definitely opportunities that you should be looking to keep an eye open for, because looking at buying out the right card before the reprint of a related card can definitely result in some huge opportunities. Alright guys, that is it for today's Market Watch episode. We had a bit of a different type of conversation today, talking a bit more about theory and how I assess the market rather than individual cards, but I do hope that you guys still found it at least a bit useful. It's like the saying about giving a man a fish versus teaching him how to fish. I hope that in reviewing different ways to break down and analyze the market, that you guys will be able to come to your own conclusions when you hear about the next big reprint, announcement, or product. Anyways guys, if you did enjoy today's Market Watch episode, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you guys are looking at seeing from Maximum Gold, what reprints you guys are hoping for, as well as what you guys are planning to do with the upcoming release of Phantom Rage as well. Also, if you guys like this video and you want to see more videos just like it, or similar videos from Tombox, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.